finna út góðan fjárfestingar. Ég ekki nokkað. Ekki nokkað. Ég alveg þetta sko. Ég rosalega góður svona. Ég með alveg bara. Það væri cool. Búa til eitthvað svona bara kompa, fá bara góðan fjárfesting inn í eitthvað gott nýtt framlist. Hvað segir það?
Þakka þér fyrir ábyrgðingu. Ég allavega sko, ég alveg comfortable að mista út útveðinu sko.
Í hvað segir?
Ég alveg ákveðin Já, en
ég að segja, þú veist, einmitt það bara, þú veist, þú hefur svo mikið sem, þú veist, fórstöður í sem að framtíð og þú veist, eitthvað og því þarf þess að búi til svona sitt eitthvað peningar og þannig talsið þeim að þú ert með talent og það er náttúrulega athygli á Íslandi á framleiðslu og náttúrulega bara allt bara yfir meira og meira það er ekki frá því að þú veist að það geti unnið hönd með skilur þú veist bara
umhverfið
til staðar, já ég meina að hugsa ef ég þá 2 milljarða þá
og líka þetta einhverjum útsýnum
já, útsýnum líka, já einhverjulega það er bara absolutt
það er nógu að gera
Visst það Já, það er bara absolutt nei, ég meina það er bara spennandi það er ekkert sem segja að það er mjög fyrir, þú veist meiri, þú veist aftur
Ég held við þurfum bara að byrjum á því að koma hlutum í loft.
Katsina, for men.
When's the move? The show came out.
Við vorum svolítið að kynna þetta á
It was in June.
Við þurfum bara að byrjum á þessi loft, en þú veist koma þessu frá og sé ekki alveg hvað gerðist sko.
We just met the last screening, you know. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah. That was kind of it.
Yeah. So,
You know, like what the kind of screening Is there a number of like how many times it's tried?
yeah, I don't have the number. It was on top 10 for most of June, at least.
Here and there, the work.
Yeah.
It must be quite a lot of sports, I suppose.
I think it was in top 10 on the total streaming services in the market. It was quite big.
Yeah. But I suppose like but again like this, you know, there's a moment, big 2 months, and then then there comes a new. But I mean, I think I believe. I mean, I think series like this they are alive. I mean, people, you know, how do you say they find new stuff that they haven't watched two years ago. It's always there and it sort of links in.
Þar erum við live.
How do you say they are you
We're live?
Yeah.
Hello, welcome. It's around 9:15. We're here in downtown Reykjavík. This is a morning coffee with the Nordics. If you're tuning in on Facebook, welcome. And there's a lot of folks here as well at Mál Menning. So I'm joined here by Högni, and who's the composer for the TV series KATLA, which is an Icelandic series which came out about in June of this year on Netflix. And the producer and writer of some of the episodes of KATLA. So we're basically going to get into deep about the music and the sort of how it all came about. This is one of the first, I guess, sort of Netflix productions for Iceland, right? That was actually something that Netflix came and worked on in Iceland. So it's kind of a first for Iceland. So basically, I just want to know, how did it come about that you got together, and sort of at what point did you start talking about the music? Was it with the script? Did you score the picture? How did it all come about?
You know, it was when we were developing it. You know, me and the other creator, Baltasar, come over. Then, in my mind at least, I was hesitant to have a composer on this series. I was wondering if we should just work on classical, the classical composers, you know, like Stanley Kubrick did. You know, but then Baltasar, you know, I heard rumors that Baltasar was hanging out with this guy, and he came up with this idea that Högni would be a good fit into this project, and I was willing
Skeptical
to
first.
I was skeptical, but I was willing to
Give it a
listen to
try.
and we met, and it was, you know, he actually came to the set a couple of times or so, and we kind of clicked.
Yeah, I mean, Sigurjón sent me the first scripts in January last year, and the filming started, I think, was that in April or something like that.
March, but we were of course shut down because of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, but
for a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. How it came about from my end was that Baltasar and I had been in sort of touch, I suppose, as you mentioned. We sort of in a professional basis, not a professional, but I had sent him some music and sort of, you know, a little flirting thing going on. You know.
Were you flirting with him?
I wasn't exactly say flirting with him, but you know, I understood that Baltasar. I mean, from my perspective, I figured I think Baltasar could be a person that I could work with in music. I had never done a big drama before, and I had done one feature film, and you know, a lot of documentaries and a lot of music for theater, and in my career, you know, traveled to different worlds of music and dimensions in electronic music and pop music, etc. But you know, I wanted to enter the film composing, and because I also, because of personal reasons, and just I'm a composer at heart, and I thought that could be a good thing. So I approached Baltasar and saying, I think I could, you know, I'd like to send you some music. And I received good feedback, and then
you sort of mentioned that, like, you know, with something like this, with a sort of sci-fi sort of feel, that the sort of what you would kind of approach it is sort of ominous, sort of drone ambient, and that was sort of maybe something that you thought originally that they would look for.
Well, no, I mean, what I have despised about, you know, just music and media, and I, as a composer, when I was young and cocky, I felt that media music, you know, was the lowest of the low, and essentially. But then as I grew up, I understood that there's no real difference between it. There's only your integrity as an artist and what you put into the piece that you work on. I had sort of seen that music in media, music in film, by nature had to be, couldn't, you know, take up too much space of the audience's mind, but that necessarily was maybe not necessarily so true. Anyways, the first pieces of music that I wrote for KATLA was in October, nearly a year before they started.
It's quite rare that, with a lot of these productions, it's sort of, it's happening a lot more now where it's like you get a picture and you just start scoring. But with this, you had a script, you had a sort of time to sort of develop themes and things like that.
Yeah.
How involved was like when did Netflix come aboard? Was this sort of something that you were building like anyway, and then they sort of came out? Or
Are you talking about the music?
Well, as in like how involved was sort of Netflix in the music? Did they have a say, or were they sort of just allowing you to just kind of go with it?
I mean, they had to say with everything regarding the edits. They gave notes on each version. So if they had some trouble with the music, they said so.
Okay.
But that was not very much, I think. But we of course, when we were getting the score the first time, there was some time when we needed to adjust.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was too much, and sometimes it was too little, maybe.
Yeah, I was lucky that I really wanted to work hard for this piece, and I had tons of things to do and other projects, etc. But I really wanted to put everything on the line for this. So I really wrote a lot of themes and a lot of music beforehand. Also derived from the sort of fabric of the story in a way, but also I didn't read the whole story until very late. Actually, funnily enough, I had not read the last 7 and 8 episodes. I didn't know how the series would end until actually right at in the middle of the production. I was, because there's a sort of a plot line that it unravels in the 7 and 8, and for me that was a big, oh my God, this is the whole thing. Oh, I understand. Like I was all as excited as a viewer would be in a way, and I thought, I was always a bit stressed. Oh my God, I'm late on reading because I was always writing. But then at one point I was like, no, actually this is kind of. I met one of the actors from the series, and he's like, have you read number 6? And I was like, no. Oh my God, you're in for a treat. And I'm like, okay, cool. So it was actually, I think that was an interesting method of writing as well, because I really didn't want to necessarily know about the plot line. I just want to know about the fabric of the story itself, not necessarily the sequence of events. And that really gave me, my inspiration. The only thing that I needed to push the art out there. And in terms of musical wise, I wanted to, every time there was, because me and Sigurjón, we became close in this production, because Sigurjón came, frequently over to the studio to review the music and take part in not just the editing of the music, but also having a critique in a way on the music itself. And I've been asked always, how is it to work in film? Isn't it difficult to always have to cite under the producer's sort of comments and how his views and opinions about you? Is it different to be solely a composer where you can write your own music? But actually, what happened in KATLA was very inspirational for me as a composer, even on an academic level, because I remember, and it's kind of funny because Sigurjón is, of course, a pretty funny character, and maybe for an international audience wouldn't know, but Sigurjón is and it doesn't really look funny, but he is kind of funny, but he's very sarcastic in a way also, like he's what's the word? It's like subtle. Yeah, and like he would just say things very straight out. And for example, but I really needed that, because I really didn't want to spend too much time on the essential I wanted to spend as much time as I could on the craft of music itself, and I think that perhaps, hopefully, shows in the episode because there's a level of complexity there. But of course, with a level of complexity, there needs to be that subtle sort of relationship between the story and the melodic line. But what the outcome was, there was quite a lot of, Sigurjón talks about classical music, and he threw me pieces of classical music before, and I was inspired. Oh, they want to go into a classical direction. Interesting. I love that stuff.
I mean, it feels like it's almost like it would be too easy to sort of go down this sort of ominous, droney sort of soundscape. And I think it is quite interesting when you hear this sort of classical sound. It kind of there's something kind of disjointed with it and kind of beautiful. So when you were writing the script, were you sort of do you have music in mind when you're actually writing?
Actually, I did, yes.
And it was sort of the big kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, like Penderecki and Handel, even,
No, you were throwing me these things,
yes.
and I love Penderecki and I love Handel. And then I was like, oh my god, this is perfect. Like I really dig. Yeah, I was like, this is hardcore 20th century classical music, the stuff that I love, that I actually have the craft skills to do, and Handel with his beautiful melodies. I knew straight away that I would dig this, and then I really received good encouragement from Sigurjón and also Baltasar from the first pieces of music that I wrote, and so I really just went in there. But talking again about the inspiration of having a mean producer on your side, is that I needed an anchor in terms of the story and the fabric of the story, and I really wanted that inspiration of like what's the emotion in the story, and I love to work under the epic storyline, not the sequence of events, but what is the big picture, psychologically. Also, that really gives me a lot as a composer. So. But I had written some music for, I remember, one scene, and it and I've been writing a lot of music, but perhaps my musical material was I had not really developed the tonal language of the series itself, and it was most of what I was doing was in a sort of diatonic sphere of music, saying that it was using the tonal colors of what we know in maybe soft tonal colors of what we hear in music on the radio, etc., etc. There was no discord there, not at that time, not really that. So I remember Sigurjón saying, "This is way too sweet. This is almost like Christmas music. We are stuck in a we are stuck in a nightmare, Högni. We're stuck in a nightmare." And I remember saying, "Oh, Christmas music. Oh, I would have appreciated that he would say it would be like Mozart's Requiem, but okay, I understand." But then I really you gotta use this as a force to develop yourself as a composer. And what happened then was really powerful for me as a composer. Like I said, theoretically, academically, because I was like, okay, what does it mean? Nightmare, cold. It needs to be cold. He said it needs to be cold, and I was like, all right, cold. And that way I developed the tonal colors. That were cold and weird pentatonic inversions of tones and assemblies of tonal colors that gave that coldness that he was referring to. So the next time that he came, I had been researching scales from French mystical composer Olivier Messiaen. I had been studied all kinds of weird stuff, and I had written themes and stuff, recorded it with strings, and one moment that he heard that, oh my God, that's amazing! Oh, that's so cold, I get shivers. Oh, and I said, this is what is this piece? And I said, it's the breath of the Lord, the Dark Lord, the inspiration of the Dark Lord. I said the name. Is oh my God, that's exactly what I want. I really love that. And from that point on, we really, that was maybe episode 2 or 3. When things really got dark in the series as well.
Yeah. But also, it's like, I mean, what I loved about this production is like it's so it feels so uniquely Icelandic, but it's so ambitious. But when it comes to like the sort of orchestral sound, did you, it's obviously easier to go to Budapest and do strings there. Like, was having the Iceland, you worked with the Iceland Symphony Orchestra at KATLA. I mean, there is something about their playing that is quite cool and quite, you can hear the difference. And I feel, was that something that you sort of, did you decide that you had to do it with them? Was that sort of part of it?
Well, I mean, that at one point it was just like, maybe this also because of COVID, essentially, because the classical orchestras like the Iceland Symphony Orchestra are booked like 2 years, and so there was a space there. But at one point I was like, maybe this could work. I could set up a really cool orchestral session. Orchestral in a classical sense, not just recording the MIDI strings that you recorded in your studio, but creating that classical music that initially was what Sigurjón had sent over.
And I mean, you probably come from a unique position because I mean, you've been in bands and you've released records and you've toured, but you're also a composer. And I mean, but you've never. I mean, you've done maybe some film, but this was quite like a big project to sort of get thrown into. I mean, and like how kind of involved were you in the sort of? Were you in the room with the orchestra? Were you sort of part of that process, like in the room with them? Were you sort of kind of amping it on?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I was there at the recording sessions, delivering, what the message of the music was to the conductor. Wrote the arrangements. I worked with an orchestrator as well, but as a being a classical composer in one side of my brain, using the methods of classical composition to produce the music.
Amazing. But so the show obviously did really, really well. I mean, it's kind of, people talk about Squid Games and how it's such a unique show and has an incredible viewership. Like KATLA was like pretty much in the top 10 all over the world. And like, was it something like when you were writing this, did you sort of envision that it would have such a success? And
of course, we hope.
You hope, so,
but no, I didn't know. I didn't realize. I mean, we went on top 10 in the US, and that was something we never dreamed of. But I mean, it was not for long. It was like 2 or 3 days or something. But enough, though.
Enough, yeah.
But I mean, that was. Of course, we were ambitious. We've always been. But we've previously had success with Trapped, around the world. So we were aiming pretty high, but I'm very happy about the results.
I feel like the timing was pretty incredible. I mean, it's like we're going through COVID, the volcano. Was that a marketing plan, or
we spiced up the
lava.
Lava.
Yeah. But my feeling, as we are talking about Högni's involvement in all this, I feel that he made such a huge volume of work, during this, and much more than I've ever experienced with other composers. It was. I don't know. I mean, he now has in his drawers tons of pieces that he can use on other projects, where stuff that he was trying out in KATLA, and I, of course, like I told Christmas songs and stuff like that, but that can be used in other projects, of course. But that it didn't fit into what the atmosphere we were aiming for, but what I admire with Högni is how he was all in, all the time, and probably because this is one of his first projects, he is probably gonna be. He'll learn that. I'm not saying he will put less effort into his next project, but we were lucky to have him at this time because it was he is really, both learning and putting all his efforts in it. But of course, when you work with other composers that have done this a million times, it's like, I'll put this in here. Okay,
It's kind of like a formula, maybe.
It's more formulatic. Yeah. But this was a privilege.
Yeah, I mean, it's so ambitious, the whole stuff, it's you can really just feel it's very unique.
Absolutely, and I think because like we were all trying to find this series as we were going along. It was new for me to write this kind of material. I had been more trained in writing cop shows and murder mysteries, and it was a great relief because in the first stages of development, there was actually a murder mystery there. And I remember when we decided, hey, when we kind of forgot about the murder mystery, then we decided, hey, we don't need it. And that was a great relief for me. Because KATLA was that kind of beast, we were all trying this for the first time. It's sci-fi maybe, but it's also like a mystery, more like a mystery than sci-fi, and
psychological.
It is. It's hard to pinpoint what it is. So we were all learning it on the way, and Högni's music was part of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating to me because I feel like there's a lot of people obviously in Scandinavia watching this and probably wondering because this is this did so well and it's so big and so brilliant and obviously use a lot of Icelandic crew and it's kind of it's obviously world class, but you obviously worked on Trapped and that was something that I guess a lot of the same team, and also it's just like when I watched Trapped for the first time, it was when I sort of was introduced to Johan Hansen and Hilde. So obviously it's a big part of when you're writing these things, it's sort of bringing everybody sort of up and it sort of seems to just make everybody so sort of world class in a way. So when you're sort of working on this project, was it something, obviously it was kind of a risk to work with Högni in a sense. I mean, obviously you have a huge career.
It was a huge risk.
It's a huge risk. But I think it paid off, but I think it's
absolutely
paid off. But then, do we have any questions? I know that maybe there's some questions on the Facebook stream that maybe we could ask. No questions, great. So we're nailing this.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you say, you're developing the production line in a way. I mean, it is industry, in a way, but there is that beautiful commercial of creativity and production. And I had never experienced this sort of demand and expectation ever, and that it was just a real momentum for me growing as an artist, and I worked with a great partner and partners in this, and which I never could have been able to create my music without a music editor that I worked very closely with, which I had always been in conversation about the storyline, essentially, what's happening here, what's and she watched every episode before me.
Right, okay.
So she thought, oh, this is the scene where this character and this character, they meet for the first time, and there's that, and she took care of the notes of the comments from the studio. And essentially we had a conversation and it maybe boiled down to we need a theme here that is creating the music of two daughters that are missing their mother that passed away a few years ago. Oh, so it's a theme of longing and missing and grief. Okay, I get it. Dang,
And did you have was there a music supervisor on this, or was it sort of
Well,
You're a music editor.
well, I think music editor working for the composer, not working for the studio.
Yeah.
Which
It's quite rare. I mean, it's like, for a project like this, I mean, I'm sure Netflix, they want a sort of a music supervisor oversee or some sort of like a music.
Yeah, I mean, that's the industry sort of structure,
Yeah.
that there's a supervisor that works with the studio. But what I heard also with Hildur and Gunni, who they developed a sort of in a way a new structure that basically the music editor is working alongside the composer. Really made a difference for me, and she's great. Her name is Inga Magnes. Terrific. She's worked on projects with the studio now as well after KATLA. And because that's dramaturgical also, and she helped with taking the themes that I had written before, and because I love to create, and I love to create on a rapid speed, and I can do that because I work that way. And she tried out. When Balthazar came first to the studio, I hadn't even put this TV up. He was just saying, "I'm in town. Can we meet at 5?" And the hour was 2, and I had just bought a Samsung 50-inch TV, and I haven't even put it up. And I didn't know, we were talking about this before, I didn't even know how to drill holes in the wall. And so it was just like, fuck, oh my God, he's coming. And we starting the first episode. Oh my God, are we ready? We don't know. Have you put some music on some scenes? All right, let's just, and then we put the TV up. I had called my friends up who know how to do that. And all of a sudden we, dusted the last rings of the desk, and all of a sudden the directors in the studio was like, all right, let me see something. And you're like, okay, Inga put the first scene on, and we're like, we don't really know if this is good or not. They said, don't worry, don't stress out, let's just watch it. And then, we put the first scene up, and it was like a flute or something that was playing, just one lonesome flute and some strings or some sounds, and he's like, yeah, that's cool. I was like, okay, all right, my imposter syndrome mild it down a little bit. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, this makes sense. And then he took a good hands-on in the first episode, Balthazar, first couple of episodes. I mean, I really loved as well when I also, because I was doing this for the first time, and I, like you mentioned first, the sort of ambience and the sounds and the basses and everything that you heard in media music before, where you need some tone, like sound colors. I did that for the first episode, and then I sent it over to the studio, and a couple of days later, Balthazar called me and he said, and then he had listened to it on his laptop, on the way from the studio in his car, on a big rapid speed, because he had a big schedule, and he listened to it on laptop, and he's like, I can't hear anything. What's this? There's no music. Is this music? And it was sort of like cool sounds and maybe bassy drones that wouldn't hear on the laptop.
You would normally expect with something like this.
Perhaps, yeah. And I thought maybe that was what the studio wanted, and every time I did something that I thought was film music-esque, the studio came back and said, "Hey, this is boring.
This is like Star Wars.
This is like Star Wars, or this is like I'm watching CSI here. What's going on?" Okay, you want something like, okay, I'll just do what I feel is right. And then whenever I did that, and whenever I really pushed myself musically, especially in melody and stuff that was discord and dissonant, I got great feedback. So I was like, okay, I should just be myself and not try. And we made sometimes jokes about, going west, going east, whenever we went west to LA, sort of in sound, it was like whenever we went east to Moscow.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I not necessarily remember the Russian theme that you said would fit in a Russian war movie.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
No.
But we went to Hungary, and I think that worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, it seems like, these days it just seems rarer and rarer that you sort of have that, you can have that dialogue, with the writer and with the director to like really have some.
It's so important because, and a lot of filmmakers that I've worked with, at least, can be a bit, that I've talked to maybe, can be a bit shy to use music because it would take too much of their story, and this takes too much space, so I need something very.
Yeah, we are always struggling with, if there's too much music, then we can come across as not trusting the material enough or something like that.
But that really, like, we felt that they really wanted that dimension in the piece, and
Yeah.
but then again, because we did those volumes, every time we got silence, that was very powerful too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of. I mean, I feel like the power of it of this show. I think is like, especially when I put it on for the first time, is like it just didn't feel like anything I'd seen. And I'm obviously a little biased because we live in Iceland, but at the same time, it's just musically, it just didn't. It just something about it was sort of. It just felt very unique, and I think it's getting a lot rarer that directors and writers have the ability to sort of really sit down with the composer early on in the script, part, and I feel like that really definitely contributes to the success of this. So, is there any more projects in the works? Will you be doing the second season? Are you allowed to say?
I'm not allowed to say.
Not allowed to say. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's.
Oh, we have one question. Yeah.
Question from the
Internet.
coming from the international audience.
We have an, off-screen questions from the audience. I'm happy. I'm from Iceland Music. I'm just going to read out the questions. We have here one from Yakira, who asks, will the full soundtrack be released at some point?
Will the full soundtrack be released at some point?
Do you know?
Good question. No, it was. I of course wanted, and we both wanted to release the music. We pushed it.
Let's not just talk in the past tense. Maybe we are pushing it. This is in the program.
Yeah. Let's be optimistic.
Yeah.
I think we'll figure out a way to do it in the future.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, that answers the question. But there's one piece on Spotify, right?
Yeah. There's one sort of like. Did you listen to that one? The one that I wrote with Gideon?
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Oh, you liked it?
The voice of KATLA.
Yes, the voice of
Great.
Oh, thank you.
And also, I mean, you work with GDRN on this, who's a musician, who's a lead actress, who was it for her first acting role in this?
Yeah.
Yeah, and incredible.
She's great.
Another question?
Yes, we have another question. Andre Benjamin from Facebook asks, thank you for the great broadcast. Was there or were there any modular synthesizer used in the soundtrack? And if so, which?
Another good question.
And so, which module is this?
That's the question.
That's a great question. I love that. That was a pretty nerdy question, which was very, very good. The question was there any modular synthesizers used for this, the score of this project? And the answer is yes, there were. Modular synthesizer. Remember the matrix wall that I have in the studio with the blinking lights?
Yeah.
That's the modular
Absolutely.
synthesizer. Yes. I use that definitely as a for every sound color, for any sort of timbre of sound that's being distorted or enhanced. Definitely for any production of sound, I use the modular synthesizer. That's my main vehicle of electronic production. I never use any soft synths or anything like that. I use the defining sound for the KATLA definitely was the Rossum panharmonium. Again, a nerdy one, but check it out. It's a great spectral resynthesizer.
Amazing. Great. Well, I'm kind of coming to an end, I guess, and I think as we mentioned earlier, it's like the first time you have been able to get together and sort of talk about this. I guess because we've had COVID and everything's life moves on and things happen. Are there any like memories or things that you think back and you kind of like think of fondly? I think something that really sums up this whole experience working together.
I just look fondly at the whole experience working with this guy. It's like also it's because he is an experienced composer and everything, but you sometimes got the feeling that you were working with a raw talent, it is, and sometimes it was like he was doing something for the first time, and he was in some, but it was such a gratifying experience,
That's good to hear.
It's lovely to hear.
I mean, and then the proof is in the success. You know,
Yeah.
like when you believe in somebody, and you trust somebody, and you allow the process to happen. I feel.
No, we got on very well. I mean, and we got on very well, me and Sigurjón and Baltasar as well. It was a great experience for me, and I remember, just those moments in the morning when Sigurjón. I remember Sigurjón. We always try to get him in the morning because he's a morning person, and he was always in a good mood in the morning. And
That's rare.
and I remember that we were, oh, he's coming in the morning. Yes, he's always in a good mood in the morning. No, but it was just so fun, and I had string players coming in. They were performing, and I had written this string quartet, and Sigurjón came in. It's like, this is not working, and the string quartet players were like, oh my god, this is such a cruel environment. And I was like, but I remember that after that whole experience, I was so like. Everything was so, it's like, all right, this is not working, let's figure it out. I gained I knew that I could never protect anything. And that really always ended up in a beautiful thing. And I use that still today. I just never protect anything in music, and I just develop constantly.
Yeah, I never aimed for being cruel, but it was like, I know that I came there and my job was to be blunt. If I didn't like something and I thought you were in the wrong direction, I needed to say it.
Of course,
it was my job.
That being said, we had so many moments. I remember I cried at one point.
Yeah,
it was so beautiful. It was so lovely to see how you were touched. And this is a personal series for you, the writing.
Absolutely.
And there were so many meaningful moments in the whole process that you leave with you're happy, you're grateful for doing this job.
Yeah, I couldn't be more grateful.
Well, I think that's a great way to end it. And thanks so much. I mean, absolute pleasure to hear about this, and obviously a lot of continued success to both of you and both what you're both doing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Iceland Music for hosting Mál Menning, Coffee with the Nordics, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
That's great.
Okay.